Unwanted sexual encounters ranging from inappropriate comments to unwanted advances to sexual violence and rape are devastating elements of modern Irish society and unfortunately are no less prevalent on campuses across Ireland. In response to our capacity to engage directly with students, this short training programme identifies the prevalence and impact of sexual and relationship violence and seeks to educate and empower students to identify and challenge perceived social norms of unacceptable behaviour, whilst activating a student's sense of personal responsibility and capacity to contribute to a safer society as a pro-social bystander. It presents students with an opportunity to reflect on their daily social interactions, to recognise the frequency of sexual harassment, hostility and even violence, and to challenge abusive behaviour and reject all forms of sexual harassment. It also supports the development of a positive, institutional, pro-social culture for change, standing against all forms of unacceptable behaviour, whilst fostering a culture of positivity and support for all students and staff on university campuses. The Sexual Experiences Survey, conducted in 2020 by NUIG and the Union of Students of Ireland, uncovered some very damaging and dangerous statistics. Some of their key findings are as follows. Of the students who responded to the survey, just over half of first-year students reported experiencing sexual harassment or some form of sexual hostility since beginning college. This rose to 62% of students in second year and 66% in third year or higher. 29% of females, 10% of males, and 28% of non-binary students reported that they were raped during their time in college. Of these, 49% of males, 35% of females, and 25% of non-binary students said they had not disclosed the incident to anyone. And amongst those who did not disclose, 54% of females, 37% of males, and 33% of non-binary students said they did not disclose the incident because they did not think it was serious enough.
We all have the responsibility to practice consent. We do it every day when we borrow something from a friend or offer a family member a cup of tea. There are so many ways to communicate and express consent in ways that makes everyone feel comfortable, safe and supported. You can communicate consent through words such as yes, no, absolutely or not right now, through body language, so whether someone is still or responsive or reciprocal in the situation. Context also hinders and enables consent to be practiced, so whether someone feels coerced or whether the impact of alcohol or drugs are involved. According to active consent, consent should always be ongoing, mutual and freely given, our OMFG. For a bystander to intervene, research shows there are 4 stages. First, you have to notice the event or behaviour. This is about awareness, noticing what is happening around you. Secondly, interpreting it as a problematic behaviour and not to underestimate or even miss entirely its importance. Third, feeling responsible for dealing with it. This requires a personal sense of responsibility to address the behaviour, even though you are not directly involved and only observe the situation as a third party. Whilst you may not be causing it, you are part of the solution, recognising the knock-on effects of such behaviour and your capacity to be a social justice ally. Finally, you must possess the necessary skills to act.
There are several factors that may prevent us from intervening in a situation. 1. Social identity and social influence. The sense that nobody else is intervening, so why should I? And also, I don't really feel any connection to the victim. 2. Fear of embarrassment or audience inhibition. Who else is watching? 3. Diffusion of responsibility. The feeling that somebody else will intervene instead. 4. Fear of retaliation, physical reaction, or social isolation arising from the reactions of others. And 5. Pluralistic ignorance, where we fear that our desire to intervene is not shared, that only we see the behaviour as troublesome. We fear that we are in a minority when in fact we're much more likely to be surrounded by like-minded people. This mistaken belief often prevents a bystander from intervening, and unfortunately the silence created by this makes it appear as though the troublesome behaviour is actually supported.
Sexual harassment and violence can manifest in so many ways, and no form of such behaviour is acceptable. Every experience of sexual harassment and violence is traumatic for the survivor, and we need to demand a zero-tolerance approach to all unacceptable behaviour, including online harassment, rape jokes, unsolicited lewd images, harassment, catcalling, unwanted advances, groping, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, and rape.
Most of us exhibit healthy and positive attitudes and behaviours around sex and relationships. Unfortunately, there is a minority whose behaviour is often completely unacceptable and has bad consequences.
This slide represents how the world might look from the position of a person in that minority who has problematic attitudes and behaviours. If no one calls them on it, they are likely to believe that their behaviour is normal, typical of the majority, especially when it isn't objected to. Some might not care that their behaviour causes harm to others, but others might not even realise.
We all deserve a new normal, a better normal of respect and dignity. If we constantly reinforce messages about behaviour that is unacceptable, this will put pressure on people to rethink their behaviour, and it does lead to positive behaviour change.
This is where we want to get to ensure that all students are free from violence. Let's speak up and demand that change, and in effect, real cultural change both on and off campus.
So to bring about social change, we need to think about the kind of social norms that deem sexual violence acceptable. And by social norms, we mean values, ideas, and preferences about the sort of society we want to live in. Social norms are like informal rules. They govern our ideas and our actions. The good news is that we have some kind of control over the social norms that influence our ideas and our behaviour. The bad news is that they can be notoriously difficult to change. Using social norms questionnaires filled out by students who completed UCC's Bystander Intervention programme, we've been finding out quite a bit about norms and behaviours to stand up against sexual violence. We're particularly interested to find out about students' views about their intentions to act, and also their expectations of their peers to do so. And this is what we've been finding out. Our UCC-based data demonstrates a very high level of awareness amongst UCC students about sexual violence and how to intervene. It also demonstrates a very high level of intention to act amongst students. However, students do not seem to hold the same level of expectation of their peers to take on a responsibility to intervene and stand against sexual violence. Such low levels of expectations around peers to intervene is problematic simply because it can create a silence around sexual violence and halt the bystander intervention process. So when asked if they would approach a stranger looking very upset at a party if they needed any help, 75% of students said it was likely or extremely likely that they would intervene, but believed that only 55% of their peers would do so. And when asked if they would do something to help somebody who looked intoxicated and being brought to a bedroom by a group of people, 78% of students said it was likely or extremely likely that they would intervene, but believed that only 58% of their peers would do so.
I first enrolled in the Bystander Intervention training program when I was part of the student community support team. At the time, I was a sexual abuse survivor and I didn't realise the importance of being an active bystander. The training really opened my eyes to show how everyone can be an active bystander and how sexual abuse is never the victim's fault. Working with the SCS and having completed the training, it enabled the team and I to provide a safe experience for all students on their night out. The training taught us how to intervene safely if we saw a student in an unsafe situation. Everyone deserves to have a safe and respectful night out with their friends. No one should go through sexual abuse alone. The bystander training is an important step towards a safer society for all. When I experienced sexual abuse, it took a lot of strength for me to ask for help to move on from such a traumatic part of my life. The bystander program gave me the skills to ensure that no one would ever experience something similar to what I had experienced. Sign up, step up and speak out. We are all in this together.
An intervention can happen at different times and in different ways depending upon the circumstances. An intervention can occur ever before an incident happens when you recognise the threat of unacceptable behaviour. It can happen in the course of an event or indeed after the event has happened. Interventions do not always have to be confrontational or physical. They can be verbal or non-verbal. They can involve the removal of a person from a dangerous situation, the distraction of the potential perpetrator, or simply providing listening and support to a person who makes a disclosure to you after an event has occurred. We need to identify unacceptable behaviour and call it out. We can help our friends to recognise the signs and to be safe. And we can make safe and effective interventions to end harassment and violence. Student feedback post-completion of bystander training has been incredibly positive.
Bystander intervention has helped me to understand the kind of behaviour and the boundaries which people cross in everyday life that amount to sexual misconduct, and the ways in which it is safe to intervene or simply pinpoint this behaviour.
Yes, just today I took action when I saw a girl being harassed by two men. I felt much more confident and knew exactly how to act.
I have a lot more confidence being able to speak and voice my opinions on the matter after taking part in this class.
This is not expressly to do with sexual violence, but some people in one of my class group chats were being rather rude and aggressive when expressing their disagreement at something we were learning. And I had the courage to message in to tell them that the way they were speaking was not okay, and ask them if they could be more considerate of other people's beliefs next time. I was nervous about it because I didn't know how they would react, but just like it said in the workshops, once I had said something, the others who also felt weird about it also started to speak up. So thank you for making me aware of how to speak up about things that aren't okay.
I can't stress enough how important it is that students get the opportunity to participate in this workshop. I didn't actually realise I was personally affected by the material, but it meant that I could go and talk about it. Sign up and speak up. Bystander Intervention at UCC. For more information, visit bystanderintervention.ucc.ie.